Hello everyone, thanks for joining us in this video. We're here with you with episode 26 of our online MTCNA course, and today we want to talk about the DHCP client in RouterOS. We'll first briefly read about the fundamentals of DHCP client, then go over the DHCP client window in Winbox, and finally take a look at the options available to us when setting up the DHCP client in RouterOS. As we previously saw in the MTCNA course outline on MikroTik's website, Module 2 of this program is about DHCP, which stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. If you remember in episodes 6 to 9, when we were first setting up our home lab, we would manually set up static IP addresses to establish the connections in our network. That manual process works when you only have a few hosts. But when creating much larger networks, you need the DHCP server and client function to set up your network. As mentioned in our previous tutorial, you can refer to MikroTik's official documentation reference to read about DHCP. DHCP is used for the easy and automatic distribution of IP addresses through a network. In RouterOS, DHCP includes both server and client parts, and it is compatible with RFC 2131, which is a standard for the DHCP function across different platforms. The RouterOS DHCP client may be enabled on any Ethernet-like interface, and it'll accept a set of information, including address, netmask, default gateway, and 2 DNS server addresses, some of which are optional. By referring to the IP menu and the DHCP client submenu, you can access the main DHCP client window, which you'll find empty once you reset a device to connect for the first time. If you remember in episode 2, we mentioned that some devices might have DHCP client enabled as part of their default configuration. By clicking on the plus add button, you can define a new DHCP client. The first thing you'll need to define is the interface on which you wish and expect to receive an IP address from your DHCP server. We mentioned that the DHCP client receives certain pieces of information, some of which are optional. IP address and subnet mask are mandatory, but the default gateway, DNS, and NTP, for instance, are optional. Therefore, in the DHCP window, if you uncheck the peer DNS and NTP options and choose not to receive a default route or gateway, your DHCP client will still be created. Once the DHCP client has been created, if you refer to the IP menu and the addresses submenu, you'll see that an IP address has been automatically created with the D flag that stands for dynamic, as well as the IP address and the subnet mask of /24 and then the network address. Now, if we go to the IP menu and the route submenu, you can again see that no default gateway can be found. You can change this by referring to your DHCP client and selecting yes as the option for adding a default route. Once you do that, you'll see that a default gateway will be added to your routing table with the DAD flag that stands for Dynamic, Active, and DHCP. The same goes for DNS. Currently, if you go back to the IP menu and this time to the DNS submenu, you can see that we do not have a DNS setup here. By turning on the DNS option in the DHCP client window, a DNS will also be added automatically to your configurations. The Advanced tab in the DHCP client window contains other options such as hostname and client ID that we'll talk about later once we have introduced DHCP server as well. And the Status tab that you can see here gives you information about your current DHCP client. As you can see, we also have the 2 Release and Renew buttons both in the main DHCP client window and in the window of each defined DHCP client. The function of Release is to reset the information received from the DHCP server. On some platforms, you'll need to click on Renew to receive new DHCP settings. On some others, once you click Release, the DHCP information will be renewed automatically. That's it for now, everyone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and in case of any questions, let us know in the comments down below. See you next time.